Donald Trump and his Republican allies and bad hombre friends are in the process, somewhat underneath the radar, given all the other madness going on today, are in the process of conducting what I personally would describe as a systematic assault on women's reproductive rights and health rights, including access to abortion services and much, much more. I think we need to be talking about that assault more, and I think we also need to be highlighting the people who are working against it in order to ensure that those services continue to be available to the women of the United States. And here to discuss that with us now is Dr. Diane Horvath-Cosper. Dr. Horvath-Cosper is the medical director of Whole Women's Health of Baltimore. That is an independent clinic providing gynecological services, including abortion care, to the women of Maryland and supporting surrounding states. She is also a fellow with Physicians for Reproductive Health, which is a physician-led advocacy organization, and she joins us now. Dr. Horvath-Cosper, thank you for coming on the program.
Thank you for talking about this issue.
Oh, absolutely. And I think, as I mentioned in my introduction, there are a number of fronts, I would say, on this in this struggle. Let's talk about a couple of them. The House of Representatives recently passed a bill, H.R. 36, and H.R. Are you familiar with that bill? What would that do?
Yeah, I am. So H.R. 36 is a really damaging piece of legislation that would set an arbitrary time limit on when people can have abortions. So it sets 20 weeks as basically a non-evidence-based point in pregnancy to cut off abortion care. And the fact is that the people who need abortions later in pregnancy have some pretty extenuating circumstances, and they need comprehensive, evidence-based, compassionate care, not a limitation of their options.
Now, did you know or have any idea, I can guess, but where the arbitrary figure of 20 weeks came from?
Right. So this is where we see, again, the use of pseudoscience or the misuse of science to say that at that point in pregnancy, the idea that fetuses can feel pain or they can respond to stimuli, and that's actually been discredited by the bulk of the available evidence. So reliable science agrees that that is actually not the case, and that this time point, again, has been chosen in a really arbitrary fashion when you look at the evidence that's out there.
And this this arbitrary timeline, it's absolutely hard and fast. If this were to become law, there are no circumstances under which a woman could get an abortion after the 20th week?
So my understanding of the legislation is that it's written to give exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the pregnant person. But that's, again, how sick does someone have to be before I can intervene to do a life-saving abortion? So there's no protection for the health of the pregnant person. And I think that the issue, again, is that this is not a time when you want the government telling you how to take care of patients. And every pregnant person deserves compassionate, evidence-based healthcare, and this law does not permit me to do it, and in fact would make me a felon for providing that care.
And you went to exactly what I was thinking about, Dr. Horvath-Cosper, as we were talking about this, which is, it amazes me that people who I see on my television all the time or in my newspapers talking about individual rights, the right not to pay your taxes or what have you, suddenly when it comes to women's health issues in general and reproductive rights in particular, suddenly think it's the government's business to intervene in the relationship between a doctor and her patient. I imagine that thought crosses your mind on many an occasion.
Yeah, it's a strange paradox. I think the other thing that's really distressing about this is that, again, it flies in the face of science. So the Supreme Court decision from last year, Whole Women's Health versus Hellerstedt, that actually said that any abortion restrictions that burden somebody in their ability to seek an abortion need to be based in scientific evidence. And this proposal, this HB 36, appears to directly contradict that Supreme Court decision. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens going forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's talk about a related issue, if we might, Doctor, and that is the Department of Health and Human Services issued a strategic plan, a document that defines life as beginning at the moment of conception, which is, to me, you know, as a theological view, people are entitled to believe whatever they want to believe, but as an objective statement on the part of the United States government, which is supposed to be science-driven, strikes me as an astonishing assertion to make. Obviously, that has all sorts of implications for women's autonomy over their own bodies, from, I would think, from morning after pills to, you know, any number of other, you know, their self-care during a period of early pregnancy, as well as their right to abortion, which I suppose could become murder at any point. Am I right about this? Does such a document really exist in the United States government? And is it as off base as it seems to me?
Yeah, this is, you're kind of hitting the nail on the head. The HHS issued these proposed changes to their language. They're available online and they're actually open for public comment. So I would urge you and anyone else who's concerned about this change to submit public comment. And I don't know what the effect is going to be of those comments, but certainly it's our time to say something. I think the issue of when life begins, like you say, is a theological issue. It's a philosophical issue. The issue of when pregnancy begins is settled science. Pregnancy begins when a fertilized egg implants into the wall of the uterus, not before, not at the moment of fertilization. There is no pregnancy at that time. And so for the HHS, an agency which is tasked with upholding, you know, scientific evidence and promoting evidence-based care for people, for them to go this route is especially disturbing. And to see it in light of some of the appointments to the HHS for leadership positions, it's extremely troubling.
Let me ask you a scientific question, Dr. Horvath-Cosper. When fertilization occurs, the resulting fertilized egg, maybe I'm going off on a tangent here, maybe not, but how many cells does that egg have, roughly? Do you know?
At the moment of fertilization, or?
Yes.
So there's one egg cell and one sperm cell, and then fertilization happens, and then there's cell division, and so the number of cells doubles with each division. I think it's probably not relevant in the sense that, you know, again, there's no pregnancy until that ball of cells implants into the lining of the uterus. But I think maybe what you're getting at is that this is a very small, you know, like biological phenomenon, and that people don't even know they're pregnant, even after the implantation happens in pregnancy. So even after pregnancy actually occurs, a lot of times it takes weeks for people to know that they're pregnant. And so I think when you see these restrictions and you see this kind of language on the HHS website, this could actually have implications for people who never imagined they would need an abortion or need contraception. This has implications for people who want infertility treatments because embryos are created in the laboratory and then implanted. And if we're going to endow those embryos with constitutional rights, then we have to talk about how that impacts people's ability to have assisted reproductive technologies. And I think that's going to be a place where a lot of people are going to be very uncomfortable going.
Yeah, no, I think those points about those implications are really important. And yeah, you got the gist of where I was going, which is if this is really saying that life begins at the moment of fertilization, then those two conjoined cells in that instant, by that logic, could have the same legal rights as, pick somebody, the lead violinist for the London Symphony Orchestra, or, you know, somebody mining coal in West Virginia. It just seems to me, an extraordinary distortion of common sense. And again, from a theological point of view, believe what you want to believe, but I'm astonished by that, and based on the implications you've described, very, very concerned about it. I guess the last subject I'd love to cover with you is a story. I think a lot of people saw the headlines, but maybe didn't fully grasp what was going on, about a young woman in Texas who was held against her will by the Trump administration, a pregnant woman who wanted to end her pregnancy. Are you familiar with that story?
I am, yes.
So could you tell us, please, just briefly?
Yeah, so she, this is really just a tale of cruelty stacked upon cruelty and injustice towards this young woman. She has a legally protected right as a sign of her, the fact that she sign of her maturity, and the fact that the government has inserted itself into this incredibly private decision is just, this woman has already been through injustice upon injustice, and to put this on top of it is just, it's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and the latest, as I understand it, is that a judge has intervened and ruled that she has the right to an abortion, but this story may be changing day by day, as far as I know.
Yeah, the last actually that I read this morning was that now her right to have the abortion has been blocked again. And so it's unclear. The ACLU put out a statement. It's unclear what's going to happen. She's able to receive counseling, but she may still not be able to get the abortion care that she needs. And again, for someone who clearly has had struggles just surviving and thriving, and has dealt with a lot of cruelty and a lot of oppression, to add this on top of it and to have it be perpetuated by the government is tragic. It's beyond tragic.
Yeah, well, I couldn't agree more, and I have to say that you certainly have your work cut out for you, you and the other physicians who are part of Physicians for Reproductive Health, as well as you in particular. Last question for you, Dr. Horvath-Cosper. How do you keep your faith up? How do you keep your spirits up? Faith in the future is what I mean in this case by faith. And how do you keep going?
That's a great question. A lot seems really discouraging right now. And I think the things that keep me going, and I think this is true for a lot of my colleagues, is that patients need us. And what we're doing is good work, and it's moral, and it's just. And we'll keep going as long as people need our care. And I think in terms of advocacy, nothing big has ever been achieved quickly. So we're going to keep plugging forward and hope that the arc of justice is going to be in our direction.
Very well said. So thank you so much for your good work. Thanks for coming on the program, Dr. Diane Horvath-Cosper, Medical Director of Whole Woman's Health of Baltimore, and a fellow with Physicians for Reproductive Health. Thanks for coming on the program.
You're so welcome. Thank you.